We are here this evening as the WNBA goes into their weekend to say that across the faith and civil rights as well as human rights communities around the world, that we stand rock solid behind Brittney Griner at this stage in which she is going through. As we as believers, that as the world deals with many conflicts, there ought to be those that can engage in work that goes beyond boundaries and differences. Sports and faith ought not be confined to the boundaries of any nation or any belief. And no one has exemplified that more than Brittney Griner. Brittney Griner has played all over the world. Even when some would not go to Russia, she would go. She has been a global role model to show that there is no boundaries for those that want to engage in athletics. And there ought not be any boundaries in how we deal with whatever unintentional situations occur. She is a champion on the court, a champion that should have been on the court here this weekend. But she was a champion yesterday when she stood up and said, I may have done something unintentional. I will own that. And I want young people, young fans around the world to own whatever they do. Let me be a model. I do not know what the outcome will be. She doesn't know. She stood up and owned it. I hope the world owns that she has stood up as that role model, as that person who has not had any borders or boundaries to using her craft, her art, her talent for people all over the world. She didn't see Russian fans any different than American fans. She saw all of them as fans that deserved the right to see women play basketball. She did that, and I hope that is what is considered as we see what happens now that she has taken this stand. We've been proud of her achievements, of what she's done on the courts in this country and in courts around the world. And we were proud when she stood up alone. She's been there 4.5 months, having to be transported in vehicles too small for her frame, incarcerated where she's in a place where most of the people in that place can't speak her language. I think she's already done a lot of time, given what we're talking about was the infraction that's been raised. We're raising to the faith community around the world. I've reached out to the Russian Orthodox Church that we ought to rise to the same level that Brittany has and say, wait a minute, right is right. She has stood up. And I hope we show young people and fans all over the world, when you stand up, that you will face what is fair and right. We will on Sunday all over this country call on houses of faith to pray for Brittany, pray for the Whalens. We want everybody treated fairly. But we also want it to be something said that this champion, who can't even talk as often as one would expect, to her own wife, she's not watching this on the news every night. She has no idea of the millions of people that are standing up for her. Bring Brittany home. Bring her home to her wife. We are going to stand with her until you do. And let's show the world that even in the midst of conflict, we know there are tensions between nations. We know there's conflicts going on. But we also know there ought to be a place where conflicts stop and where the politics stop and the international rivalries stop, and say some people operate above that. And because they have, we will operate on a humanitarian level as well as on a level of what is fair. You will hear today from her wife and some of the stars in her profession. And then we will take a couple of questions. Cherelle will not take questions, but she will make a statement. But let me say that if one were to show, and I've been in movements all my life, if one were to show me someone who has shown great discipline while being pained, it's been Cherelle. Cherelle remained quiet, though she was pained and suffering every day. But when nothing was occurring, she said, I must at least express what she's going through. And she's done it in a way that has been even and balanced, and only asking, I don't want to get into y'all's international politics. I just want my wife home and let her continue her profession. I bring you a disciplined and a humanitarian and a faithful and courageous woman, Cherelle Griner.
Well, first, I'd like to actually thank Reverend Sharpton for his support in this gut-wrenching time for my entire family. I truly appreciate your prayers. I appreciate you rallying faith leaders all over the entire country. Secondly, I'd like to thank the WNBA. You guys did not have to go to the extreme measures that you have in honoring my wife this entire WNBA season, from the thoughtless efforts to immediately compensate her salary, to immediately lift her up the entire season. It has just been overwhelming for my entire family, with joy knowing that BG's footprint was so big that even in her absence, you still can't miss her. I mean, she's 6'9", so when she's here, you're going to see her. And you guys did the unthinkable by making her presence still known and visible even in her absence. And so we are BG, and I'm so grateful that every single last one of you in the league took the time to make sure that everybody understood the importance of understanding what We Are BG is in her absence. I'd also like to talk directly towards the letter, because I know many of you have saw the news that BG took the time to write President Biden, and as a result, he did write her back, and I was able to read the letter, and it brought me so much joy, as well as BG. I believe every word that she said to him, he understood, and he sees her as a person, and he has not forgotten her, which was her biggest cry in her letter. So I'm grateful and I'm thankful that the administration, that was the first one that BG ever voted for, took the time to see her as a person, to see her in the midst of what she's going through, and to speak to me directly and let me know that they are exhausting all efforts to bring her home. And that has been my biggest push for the last 4.5 months. And so at this point, I am in the position where I understand that what they are doing is very challenging due to the circumstances with Russia and the United States right now. And so I want to make it very clear that our next move as supporters for BG is to make sure that the administration understands that they have our full support in doing any and everything necessary to be able to bring BG home, as well as every other wrongfully detained American. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and thank you again for keeping my wife's name and legacy very visible while she's not here on U.S. soil. Thank you.
And let me say that all of us will support the efforts of President Biden and Vice President Harris to do what is necessary and appropriate to bring Brittany home. And we commend him for standing publicly and saying that, as we will stand for the others that have been detained. And that will be part of our prayer on Sunday. Now we will hear from the executive director of the WNBA Players Association, who has been a champion on many fronts for the players and has stood up for BG, Terry Jackson.
Thank you. Before I begin, I'm going to read just a brief comment, brief remarks from the Commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, who couldn't be here, but who wanted to ensure that I shared her thoughts with you, Cherelle, and with everybody. Brittney Griner remains in Russia for 141 days. She has the wholehearted and unconditional support of the entire WNBA and NBA family, who eagerly await her safe return. And the league will recognize BG, as Cherelle mentioned, as an honorary starter at this weekend's WNBA All-Star Game. Thank you all for your support. Again, those are the words of Kathy Engelbert. As Rev mentioned, I am the executive director of the Women's National Basketball Players Association, the union that represents BG and the All-Stars here in Chicago and all the players across all 12 teams. We are standing here today because of the love and the support that we received not once but twice from a mighty network of powerful Black women representing every industry across this country, the Win with Black Women Network. We want to publicly thank them again and again for mobilizing to support BG and bring greater awareness and urgency to this moment right now. And we are standing here because we have the ultimate civil rights, human rights, faith leader in Reverend Sharpton. Thank you, Reverend Sharpton, for standing with us, for being the advocate and champion for BG, for centering her mental health, her physical health, her safety, and for spotlighting our moral obligation over privilege. Thank you, Reverend Sharpton, for setting the example of what it means to extend grace and seek mercy. As you've said, Rev, BG has taken accountability, and now it is time, past time, for this to come to a conclusion. The conversation with Cherelle Griner was important, and today we express our appreciation to President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. That call to Cherelle was so important, and their work to bring BG and Paul Whelan and detained Americans home is so important. So we stand with them. May the administration know that they have a powerful collective in my membership and this network of Black women to support them. Brittney Griner is a global sports ambassador. She is loved and popular in Russia by fans of her team and basketball fans in general. Let us not forget that. She's a hero in our country and in theirs. Our charge is to the global sport community to stand with us, and our charge is to the media, as Cherelle said, to stay focused on this story, to stay focused on her legacy, and to help us bring BG home. I want to bring up our president, Nneka Agumake, to share some remarks. She is the president, again, of the WNBPA. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's not often that we get a platform like this, so I really want to thank Reverend for bringing her platform here. Cherelle, our birthdays are a day apart. I've always felt connected with you, and it's just, it's a lot of emotion for me right now. But I really want to just focus on BG. BG, Brittney Griner, is an American hero. She's ours, and she's yours, and we must get her home. She looks like us. She is us. Our 144 have always stood together as sisters and in allyship. It's part of our DNA as team sport athletes and as women who have often been undervalued and who must move together to be seen. But what America needs to understand is that she is you too. She is the fun aunt. She is the wife who encourages her spouse to thrive. She's a daughter who celebrates her dad's service on the 4th. She's the kid who was bullied and a role model who stands up for those kids now. She is kind and she is all of ours. She's my fellow Houston native, and thus my dad's favorite player. And he can tell you that. We're so lucky to know BG. We're so lucky to know her. If you don't know her, you need to. She is resilient, kind, and BG, Brittney Griner, is an American. I hope you'll join us in making sure President Biden knows how much we appreciate his work to get her and all other American detainees home. We are BG. Get her home now. And with that, I'd like to introduce my Vice President, Sue Bird.
Thank you. Echoing what everyone has shared, especially NECA, just so thankful for this opportunity, for the Reverend, for this platform. BG is an American. She's an American. And she's all of ours, all of us as Americans, but also athletes who feel a part of a global athlete community. Sanctity of sport is important. And as a female and as an athlete community made up of friends from countries around the world, we all feel rattled by this and just want her home. We're grateful for the work the administration is doing to get her home. Getting her home, and I can't emphasize this enough, will be a win for every American. Because even though we are athletes, BG is an athlete, she's also an American. Thank you.
Our hope and our prayer and our prayers on Sunday and as the All-Star game goes on is that people will understand that sports and faith should be something above the conflicts that we have. We are aware of the conflicts, but there ought to be a place that even those that are adversarial can say that we must regard and respect those that have done that. And no one has symbolized that more than BG by playing across all boundaries and borders and giving people what they want. And I would hope that we all, I had said that I wanted to go and have prayer with her in Russia. I would love even more to have prayer with her back home, her and the others that have been detained. And Cherelle, I've been in a lot of struggles, but I'm going to do something I don't do. I'm going to risk messing up my hair to wear your T-shirt. Don't laugh at me if I mess up my hair now.
I won't, I promise. You're natural at it. It looks good.
We are all BG. We are all BG. We are all BG. We'll take a couple of questions. Where's Ms. Jackson? Yes.
Just given the food that was given yesterday, I was just wondering if you guys have maybe kind of outline what next steps look like for BG and just kind of what you guys are expecting in terms of maybe what that'll look like in terms of support.
We are the legal team there in Russia with her is guiding that. We are not part of that. We only hope that it is successful. What we are raising about it is it took a strong role model for her to decide to say, I'm going to own what was done. It was unintentional. I understand she'll be making an intentional statement in the next court appearance on Thursday. And we hope they keep in mind she's already done 4.5 months. And I think personally that's more than enough for what was done. But we will see what the courts say. And but let's not act like she's not walking away from this. She's already done 4.5 months. She's detained as we speak. Anyone else?
You talked about Brittany and honorary starter this weekend. Can you kind of detail what other ways she'll be honored on Saturday and Sunday, and what impact, I guess, what will be the mind of that is going on knowing that she is detained in Russia?
Sure. I'm going to be speaking a little bit on behalf of the league because, you know, I represent the player side of the house. But I do want to start with, for those of you who don't know, and perhaps you do know, that the 42, BG's jersey number, has been on every court for the entire season. We've been doing a lot of social media posts about it. What the league is also going to look to do is a special recognition of Cherelle and the family during the game. I think there's some things that they don't want me to kind of tee up, but so, you know, tune in for that game. But there is going to be a special recognition of BG at the game. I can tell you that.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
All right.